Hello, and welcome to Candidates Upfront, a public interest election program of Berks Community Television and the League of Women Voters of Berks County. Our November 7th general election is coming up. Citizens who are 18 or older will vote for judges, school directors, and township, borough, and city officials. The deadline to register to vote is October 23rd. To check your voting status, go to vote.pa.gov. That's vote.pa.gov. You can register, change your party, locate your polling place, or apply for an absentee or mail-in ballot. And the deadline to apply for those is October 31st. If you are looking for information on statewide, school, or township races or borough officials, please use the League's online voters guide, vote411.org. That's vote411.org. And for information on countywide and Reading candidates, please stay tuned. The League interviewed candidates in contested races, those who wanted to be interviewed, and for each race, the candidates got the same basic questions and had the same amount of time to answer them. For the League, I'm Judith Cranus, and let's begin.
Hello, I'm Kay Herring, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Berks County. There are 4 candidates that are competing for 3 seats as Berks County Commissioner. There are Democrats Dante Santoni Jr. and Jess Royer, and Republicans Christian Leinbach and Michael Rivera. You, as a voter, are going to vote for 2 candidates, but the top 3 highest vote getters get elected. The Board of Commissioners is the chief governing body of the county. The 3 elected at-large members perform executive and legislative functions of county government. The term is 4 years, and the current annual salary for a commissioner is $110,339. The commissioner chair receives $113,678. Each candidate's views are their own and not those of the League or BCTV. This interview is with Jess Royer. Welcome, Jess. If you could please start out by telling our viewers a little bit about yourself and why are you running for this position?
Sure. My name is Jess Royer. I'm a current Spring Township supervisor. My wife and I live with our 4 children in Spring Township, and we love where we are. We love Berks County. We want to make sure that it continues to be a good place to live and raise a family. And I'm a big proponent of the stop complaining, start campaigning mindset. So in 2019, there was an effort to sell off Berksheim. There was talk of privatizing Berks County Prison. And at the time, Berks County was operating the detention center, which was a raft of issues that I felt very strongly about. So I got involved and I ran for county commissioner in 2019. After having gotten a taste of the decision-making process, I became a Spring Township supervisor, and I really enjoy my role there, making decisions that impact myself, my family, but also the community that we live in. And that's important to me to be a part of the community that I'm in. And from my time on the zoning hearing board in Spring Township to my time as a Spring Township supervisor, based on my time at Reading Public Library, where I'm a public librarian there, I feel very passionately about public service and giving back to the community in a way that some people don't really ever get to experience. And I feel very privileged and honored to have the trust of my neighbors in Spring Township, my coworkers at Reading Public Library, my union brethren. I'm a member of AFSCME 2763, and I'm a treasurer for our local. And it really does feel like there's important work to be done, and I can either complain about the people who are doing it, or I can do it myself. So that is why I've gotten involved, and that's why I'm running for county commissioner here in 2023.
Okay, thank you. If you are elected, what is the most important thing that you would like to achieve, or the top few things you would want to achieve?
I think there are a number of issues facing Berks County right now, and in a very well-known manner, there's an issue that's facing lots of different communities in Berks County, which would be warehouses. There are warehouses coming in on open farmland. There are warehouses that have been proposed in areas which are currently woods. I think it's very important that we preserve those open spaces or agricultural spaces and not sell to developers for warehouses. I'd also like to see trust in our democratic process again. I think our elections have been run in a way which have resulted in some people questioning the integrity of the process. And the Berks County Commissioners are a part of the Elections Board in years when they're not on the ballot. And I think it's very important that we restore trust in our elections, make sure that all votes are counted, make sure that voting is as easy as possible, and that we can actually increase turnout through good election practices. And then lastly, the issues that I want to focus on are public spaces, public institutions, and public employees. So I mentioned I'm a public librarian right now. I think Berks County has some great libraries. I think Berks County has some great parks. We really saw park utilization was key during the pandemic when people were looking for outside spaces. And I want to see protection for public employees. I'm a public employee myself right now for the city of Reading. I think it's important that we have somebody who's going to advocate for the employees that work for the county. The county is one of the largest employers in the county. And I think that the workers there, the AFSCME members, the UFCW, the SEIU, all of the various employees that work for the county in all the different capacities have an advocate at the Board of Commissioner level.
Okay. And we have some questions that we'll delve into even a little bit more about some of those topics. But right now, let's talk about economic development. Do you feel policy changes or investments are necessary to encourage sustainable, well-paying jobs throughout the county?
I think the county commissioners do have a role to play in fostering a development, an environment in which businesses can thrive and especially workers can thrive. And I think it's important that the county commissioners work with business owners, nonprofits, and listen to communities in terms of figuring out what's necessary for a certain area, what types of businesses are coming into the area. I know every time there's a new plot of land up for sale in a commercial district, people are speculating as to what might be coming in, whether it's going to be a high-profile grocery chain or some other niche restaurant that they want to come into our area. And I think it's really important that we have an eye towards the future when we think about how we're developing our spaces and our commercial opportunities. And one thing that's important to me at the local level is facilitating smart growth. So areas where you can have a livable community, walking, biking, using public transit, places that people can get from their homes to where they want to go for recreation opportunities without needing to use a car. I think there are a number of ways to do that, and I think it is imperative that the Berks County Commissioners set the tone from the top to facilitate good jobs and good living experiences for as many people as possible.
Okay. Weather damage has increased throughout the county. What can the county do to lessen risk and damage? And should Berks have a sustainability plan? And then also, is the change in weather figured into the county's land use planning?
The change in weather absolutely needs to be a part of the planning process. I see a very straight line and a direct correlation between climate change and the weather that we're currently experiencing. Now, climate and weather are not the same. Climate is the personality, if you will, of the globe, and weather is the mood. So weather is very temporary. Weather is something we see storms come through with increased severity and increased intensity and increased frequency, but that's not necessarily going to be every day. So we need to be prepared for some days where it's beautiful out, which we have a lot of those days in Berks County, and some days where we're inundated with 6-7 inches of rain in a few hours, which we had just happened in July of 2023. And we need to be prepared for that. We need to be thinking about that. And the county needs to take a proactive approach, a science-based approach towards planning. And this needs to also happen in local municipalities. So I think that the county has a role to play in disseminating information out to local municipalities to talk about how we're planning our development. So we're not building on steep slopes. We're not taking advantage of trees that will be stabilizing creek banks. We need to be thinking proactively about how best to plan for increased frequency and severity of weather events. And I personally lamented the lack of snow in our 2022-2023 winter. That's always been a part of my life in Pennsylvania. I've always enjoyed snowy winters. But there are going to be times when winter is not cold and bitter and snowy. And there are going to be times when winter the next year might be very cold and bitter and snowy. And we need to be prepared for that because we really are at the mercy of our natural environment, and we need to be thinking about that as we approve and discuss planning projects here in Berks County.
Okay. Berks County has lots of infrastructure, and the county funds infrastructure, things like agricultural land preservation, libraries, parks, technology, public transportation, and more. and that's to encourage the local economy and make Berks a desired location. Are we doing enough, however, and is there anything you would increase or improve in that area?
I think that there are a lot of good intentions around maintaining our infrastructure, but a lot of times we don't try and fix something until it is obviously a problem. So we need to be thinking about the obvious ones, about bridges. We need to be inspecting bridges, looking for cracks and structural flaws so that we are able to prepare for replacing or repairing that bridge before it becomes a crisis situation, before it becomes an accident. When we can think ahead and be proactive about a problem, then we can solve it before it becomes a problem. I think that there are a lot of different ways of looking at infrastructure. And as you mentioned, libraries and parks, I think that those are really important and yet sometimes overlooked pieces of our infrastructure. People and families need third places, as they're sometimes referred to. Spend the day at work, spend some time at home, but there needs to be somewhere else to go. And sometimes that's a park, sometimes that's a library, sometimes it's soccer practice, sometimes it's the YMCA or the gym. But libraries and parks play a really vital role in giving our residents and our families a place to go, a place that's free, a place that you're not expected to buy anything to be there. As I said, I work at Reading Public Library. We see people there on a daily basis that are just looking for a roof over their heads and walls and protection from the elements, a water fountain that works and a bathroom that's available to them. And that type of public infrastructure is really easy to take for granted and forget about when it's not something that you or your family might use on a regular basis. It's important that we still have that so that it's available when you want it. And the wide range of infrastructure possibilities that we have, I remember in the interview that I was here for in the primary, there was discussion about childcare. And as a family with 4 children, my wife and I think constantly about how we're going to pay our childcare bill, which is more expensive than our mortgage for all of our children. And I think it would be great if the county were able to find a way to facilitate its own employees having childcare availability, and also conversations that allow local communities to have childcare available, because I think it is really important that we encourage family planning and family building and support families here in Berks County.
So the county recently took control of the local airport. What are your views on how this will affect the local economy, and should it continue to be a county function?
I think that the county commissioners' bosses are the voters. And if we were to hear from voters that it was really important to them that the county take control of the airport, I think there would be a bit of a mandate to do that. I personally don't believe we've heard that yet. I'm a little concerned about the liability that the county is assuming with the level of control that the county is now responsible for with the airport. I think it would be great if we had a functioning airport that allowed us to fly in and out of Reading. And I look forward to when those days have returned. That being said, I don't feel it's a county issue that the county should necessarily be as involved with as they are. I think that bringing trains back to Reading and Berks County, I think that a strong bus system are very important for Berks County. I stood with Amalgamated Transit Union workers on the streets earlier this month here in September 2023 when we talked about how they could get a better contract from BARDA. And I support their efforts because I think it is really important that we have strong public transit options. I don't necessarily see the airport as a public transit option. I think that is a great thing to have, and I look forward to when it's back, but I'm a little concerned with the liability that the county is assuming right now with the current operations.
Okay. A little bit of a different topic. What are your thoughts on when we should build a new prison? How large a facility should we have? And what programs should we have to prevent recidivism?
Well, the bulk of the county prison right now is 90 years old. It was built in 1933. There was an addition put on in 1993. And I believe that the Board of Commissioners has understood the difficulties in trying to use a part of an old building on a new building in an area where we are housing incarcerated individuals. And I think that the time to build a new prison is, on the one hand, as soon as possible, as the building is literally in need of rebuild. But on the other hand, we're in the middle of a crisis when it comes to availability of building supplies. And I see the merit in waiting at this moment in time. As we have heard from consultants, the number of beds that we need is fewer than we initially thought when this conversation first started a few years back. I think that we need a smaller prison than we currently have. I think we need more in the way of reentry programs. I think it's really important that when somebody comes out of Berks County Prison, they stay out of Berks County Prison. And whatever we can do to support that effort. At the library, we see folks who are working through their own reentry process on a daily basis, whether or not that's relearning how to use a computer, opening an email account, applying for jobs. There are a lot of things that many people do on a daily basis and comes easy to them. But for somebody who's reentering society, it's imperative that we have support there to keep them in society. I think that putting people into prison should be a last resort, and that once they leave prison, we should try and do everything we can to keep them out of prison so that we can have actual productive members of society. And I think that the county has a role to play in that.
County commissioners are responsible for the county government's workforce. Are we right-sized, and are we paying enough to attract the talent that we need here in Berks County?
As I mentioned earlier, the county is one of the largest employers here in Berks, and I think that's a good thing. I think that the county has a mandate to provide for its workforce and also to provide for the residents of Berks County. And there's no better way to do that than inspire a culture of county employees that want to actually provide for the county, of which they are also a part. We've seen some notable projects in the past, notably the Skyline Drive along the pagoda. There are still stone walls that were built by the federal government in the 30s. I think we're at a point now where we see the literal crumbling of those walls. And it would be great if the county were able to support tourist attractions that we have, local icons, local destinations that we have that we all know and love and care for. There was a recent article in the Writing Eagle talking about the needs of the pagoda in terms of securing it, in terms of making sure that the area is safe for people to visit. I think the county could play a role in that and provide public employees a chance to actually build up the area that we live in. And I believe that the county does have a role to play in actually making sure the county workforce is well provided for.
Now, the Berks County workers have a retirement fund. That fund has given no cost of living increase to retired workers for more than 25 years. Yet elected officials get regular cost of living increases. What are your thoughts on this?
I think that's unconscionable. I think that the workers need to come first, and as much as county commissioners are employed by the county, if you will, employed by the county voters, I think that they should not be putting themselves first, and that we need to be providing for the people who actually prop up the county and make up the county and provide for the county first. So I would personally not support any increase in pay or cost of living adjustments for county commissioners and elected officials until we see a similar approach for the county workforce. As a public employee myself, I know that you don't go into public service to get rich. In the past, you could go into public service knowing that there was a pension waiting for you. We've seen pension fund under attack for years now, and we've seen the quality of the work does not keep pace with the pay. And I think that people take for granted public employees, and it's really easy to say, well, they've always been there, so they will always be there. But that's not the case. We need to actually be protecting the public workforce and providing for them in a way that they feel as valued as they are valuable. And I will always be a voice for the county employee as a county commissioner.
Okay, thank you. We have an important topic as one of the last ones before your closing statement, but Pennsylvania election laws are set by the Commonwealth, but elections have to be run by counties. So do you feel that changes should be made to election law? And if you could please explain your thoughts on that.
I think that one of the most important roles county commissioners play is on the elections board. So it's imperative that we are actually running free and fair elections, making sure that it is as easy as possible for voters to cast their vote. I believe we need more drop boxes in Berks County. We have 2 right now. 2 is better than 1, 1 is better than none, but 2 is behind a lot of our county neighbors. We need to make it easier for people to return their ballots. And in times when we have seen attacks on public institutions like the mail service, we're not as confident as we have been in the past, I should say, in the timely deliverance of mail. And I think that is no slight against letter carriers or postal workers. That's an issue with the larger system that is delivering those ballots. So we need to make sure people have the ability to return their ballots as easily as possible. And I think that it's important that the county actually fully staff the Election Services Department to provide services for all voters, regardless of whether or not they're English or Spanish language speaking, and that we have well-run elections so that people will regain their trust in the elections process.
Okay. We only have less than a minute left, but I want to give you a chance to give your closing statement before I wrap up. So go ahead.
Yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, it's really important to me that I'm a part of the community so that I can build the community that I want it to be. My wife and I, my children and I, we all feel very fortunate to be here in Berks County, and we want to make sure that everybody else feels the same way. To that end, I've gotten involved with various community institutions. I've coached my kids in soccer. I volunteered at school. I'm a part of the World Affairs Council Board. I'm a part of Sierra Club. The organizations that I feel are important, I want to be a part of so that I can actually support them, because I don't want to count on somebody else to do the things that I want to happen. So it's important to me that anybody who feels passionately about their community get involved. I think everybody should run for office at some point to see A, how much work it is, but also B, to feel like they've had a say in the process. And it's important to me to know that I have not counted on somebody else to do the things that I want to happen. And that's why I've gotten involved. That's why I'm running for county commissioner. And I think that we have a real opportunity to actually support and build up the communities that we want to see happen. You can visit my website if you want to read more about why I'm running, or reach out to me at voteyesforjess.com. And I appreciate the time here today.
Okay. Thank you, Jess Royer, for sharing your views with us. Viewers, please remember there are 4 candidates for County Commissioner: Democrats Jess Royer and Dante Santoni Jr., and Republicans Christian Leinbach and Michael Rivera. You, as a voter, vote for 2, but the top 3 that get the highest votes will actually be elected to office. You can always find out more information on the candidates by going to the League's online voters guide, vote411.org. I'm Kay Herring. Thank you for watching Candidates Up Front, and have a good day.